We compete against everybody, like, who's not vegan. And the point is we're trying to show that, like, we can hang, basically, as vegan athletes. And a lot of times we win. You don't need to eat meat or consume whey protein or egg whites, and you can still be a strong, competitive strength athlete, specifically.
When you beat someone else, fair is fair. You've taken a podium placing, and now you have a chance to be seen as an athlete who can be competitive.
Hey everyone, this is Ryan from Aethix Fitness, and you are listening to Season 2 of the Aethix Approach podcast, the podcast where we highlight inspirational vegan athletes and what they do to absolutely kill it on a plant-based diet. If you haven't already, it would really help out if you subscribed to, liked, commented, and or shared any of the content I'm producing, including this podcast, Aethix Coaching Services, articles and training programs available on aethixfitness.com, videos on YouTube, and more. Links for those will be in the description, and I truly appreciate everyone listening for all of the continued love and support. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with the vegan fitness power couple themselves, Dani Taylor and Giacomo Marchesi. Dani and Giacomo have been involved in the vegan fitness space for years now, and originally met through the veganbodybuilding.com message boards around 2008 during a meetup event. They started their joint business, Vegan Proteins, shortly after, which was an online storefront for all kinds of vegan protein brands. Over the years, they eventually converted it to a vegan fitness coaching team as the online storefront space became more competitive, and have now also started Vegan Strong, which is a similar team consisting of athletes, nutritionists, authors, and coaches with a goal of educating others at events about building a strong, healthy, and impressive body on a plant-based diet. They also started its subsidiary called Plant Built, which is a collective of high-level, plant-based strength and physique athletes who compete at events. Dani and Giacomo truly walk the walk also, and have both competed at high levels in both bodybuilding and other sports themselves. Dani and Giacomo get into the details of how they met, their reasons for going vegan, what drew them to fitness and competing, how plant-based foods have evolved over the years, building muscle and strength on a plant-based diet, and so much more. This was a really great episode with two amazing and influential people in the vegan fitness space, and I think you'll enjoy their stories and commentary just as much as I did. Dani can be found on Instagram at Vegan Proteins, and Giacomo can be found at Muscles by Brussels. Check out their coaching website at veganproteins.com and their vegan health and fitness collectives at veganstrong.com and plantbuilt.com. They also have a podcast called Muscles by Brussels Radio, which can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. Thanks so much again to Dani and Giacomo, and without further ado, enjoy the show. What's up, guys? This is Ryan with the Aethix Approach podcast, and today I am here with Dani and Giacomo. What's up, guys? Thank you guys so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Cool. So do you guys want to do a quick little intro for, who you guys are, what you do, things like that, just for anyone who doesn't know?
Yeah, so my name is Dani Taylor. I've been vegan for 22 years, and I am currently a full-time coach to vegan athletes with Giacomo.
And my name is Giacomo Marchesi. I've been vegan for almost 20 years. I am a champion powerlifter and bodybuilder, and also a coach to vegan athletes.
You guys have been vegan for so long. I love that. Like it's so nice to hear of people who have been vegan for so long, because I feel like you guys have paved the way for all of us, who are a little newer. I've been vegan for 8 years now, and when I hear people who have been vegan for 20, 22 years, I immediately get so interested to hear about your guys' story there. So do you guys want to jump right into that? I'm so curious about I guess first of all, did you guys meet before you went vegan, or what was the story there?
We were vegan already when we met. Our meeting story is actually very interesting. So we met on veganbodybuilding.com back in 2008, before, Facebook existed, but it wasn't what it is now. MySpace was basically dying. That's where you went to hang out and talk about vegan fitness. So yeah, we met on there just as friends.
Yeah. So that was back in 2008 when you guys met.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so you guys are both already vegan at that point. And into lifting, obviously. So you had two things knocked off. You were just all right, cool, we're already on the same page with that.
Yeah, two big things. Those are big deal things. So yeah.
So what was the next step
For that? Well, we had a meetup for our bodybuilding forum, and what an opportunity to meet bodybuilding vegan friends that only exist inside of a computer. But no, they're there in real life, and we went to go meet them. And Danny was like, "Hey, we're one of the only two on the East Coast in this bodybuilding forum that are going to this meetup. Why don't we go out together?" I'm like, you know what? That's a phenomenal idea. Let's do that. And that's how Danny and I sort of hit it off, because we met before we met up with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What area were you guys living in back then?
I was in Massachusetts. We're in the town we are now. This is where I grew up, and Giacomo was in Brooklyn. And I had never flown alone before, so I just messaged him. I was like, "Hey, how about I just like drive to you and we can fly together?" It was like my low-key way of being afraid to fly alone.
Right.
And yeah, we just ended up hitting it off.
That's awesome. So where was this vegan meetup that you had to fly to?
Oregon, Portland.
That was Oregon? Because you guys lived there for a little bit too, right? Am I crazy?
Well, funny story about that is that we went out there because it was a dream come true, because that's where we met everybody and we fell in love with the area, and we thought, well, our friends are here and they no longer have to be in the computer. Spoiler alert, everybody seemed to have moved the second we got there, so it was just her and I, which was kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah, we moved out.
Portland?
We moved all the way across the country, and then everybody we knew moved out. And we were like, okay, cool, bye.
That's kind of how it goes, I feel like. It just But Portland, was it kind of a hub for vegan food like it is now back then?
Oh yeah, it was like the best place to be vegan in the country. True story, I gained like 20 pounds in the first 6 months of living there. This was like after I had successfully lost almost 100 pounds, and then I move out there, and all of a sudden I was just not used to like going to a gas station, and well, gas station's a bad example because you can't pump your own gas, but like going to a convenience store and seeing like vegan cookies on the counter. I just wasn't used to it. I had to like recalibrate what it meant to eat properly. But yeah, that was a really fun 6 months when we first moved there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And this was years ago still at this point, right? Like what year was that when you guys ended up moving there?
2008. We met and like moved out like 3 months later.
Like was this right after the meetup you guys went to, basically?
Yeah, probably not even 3 months after. Yeah, we were kind of crazy.
Looking back, I don't know if we would have done it the same way, but try reasoning with us back then. We were hell-bent on just dropping everything and flying high in love and on a dream, which was a pipe dream at them, but hey, we're still here doing it, so.
Yeah. So, all right, so this is 2008. You guys moved to Portland, and I guess you guys started dating right before that, I assume, right? So you guys were dating for a few months and then just moved right to Portland?
You sound like my parents now. Yes. Yeah, we had just, it was crazy. It was just like a whirlwind romance madness move across the country. You know, probably wouldn't recommend that to most people at this point in my life, but like Giacomo said, like it worked out for us. Yeah.
Yeah, it worked out, obviously. And you guys knew each other for a while before, because you guys were like internet, you know, friends through the internet and everything, which makes sense. So, all right. So after this, I'm curious about like going through the timeline here. You guys lived in Portland for a few years, at least, I assume?
3, I think. Yeah.
3. And then during this time, did you guys start having the ideas to, I mean, I guess, were you guys competing in bodybuilding and such at this point, or and powerlifting?
I wasn't at all. Like, I had no aspirations to ever compete at that point. I was just like a vegan girl who liked fitness. But Giacomo was into competing, so you should talk about that.
Yep, I had already competed 5 years before we had moved out there, and I had intentions on doing it again when Robert Cheek hit me up and he was like, hey, I want to compete with you, and I want to get the cameras rolling and see what can come out of it. It seems like an opportunity with you here. So we developed a whole project together and wound up competing together out there.
Yeah, so they were filming a documentary. They were going to film a documentary. Robert, Giacomo, and this other guy, Jimmy, were all going to compete. 3 vegan bodybuilders competing on the same stage. It was insane back then. The documentary never actually like came out, even though there was so much time and money spent filming it. I'm sure you understand. But while that was happening, while we were filming it, Giacomo and I started a fundraiser selling vegan protein powder online. So Sun Warrior brown rice protein powder back in the day was a big deal.
Yep.
And we started selling it online. And then when it never happened, we were like, okay, we're not going to do this anymore. But people were like, no, please keep selling this because I can't find it anywhere else. So that is how Vegan Proteins, our company, started. We were the first and only online vegan supplement shop in the world. So we started as a supplement store, and we ran that for like 7 years, 6
Quite
or 7
some time,
years.
actually. We watched the whole evolution of there being nothing on the market to where it is today, from start to finish.
Yeah. So I'm so this is kind of diverting a little bit, but I feel like it's also a good segue. I'm so curious to hear about your guys' experience with just seeing the whole vegan, like the plant-based food options, like kind of evolve, like, you know, through all this time, and also in terms of all the fitness-based kind of like all the protein options and stuff. Like, you guys really saw all this just like develop, and I'm really curious to hear your guys' perspective on all that. Like, how was it really hard back then to find these? I guess it was hard to find the protein powders, but like in general, was it hard to eat vegan? Like, way harder to eat plant-based back then?
You know, I went vegan here in this small town in Massachusetts, and I never had any problems, honestly, going vegan. It's nothing like it is today, though. Like, back then, you
So
just
much
kind
easier.
of, if you went vegan, you just knew, okay, well, I guess I'm never gonna have this food again, and you just kind of made peace with it. Like, there was no cheese, there was no vegan cheese, nothing, zero, nothing. So you're just like, guess I'm never having cheese again for the rest of my life. Okay, and you just moved on. But then moving to Portland, like I said, it was just like mind blowing to me to see anything like that. Giacomo was coming from New York City, where there's lots of stuff, but not as much as there seemed to be in Portland, right?
Right. And even still, the options were very limited compared to where they are today. And there were a lot of the companies and a lot of the products that you see today that you take for granted. Back then, they were not in the mainstream, and those companies were still developing lots of new stuff, and they were still very hard to find and come by.
Yeah. But as far as like sports stuff went, we didn't used to call pea protein. It used to be called Gemma, Gemma. That's what everybody referred to it as, Gemma protein. And you had to special order Gemma online if you wanted to get any protein powder that wasn't just soy, which was also hard to find. So yeah, going from that to now, you can literally walk into CVS or Walmart and have a wall of plant-based proteins to choose from. And seeing that happen inside of 15 years was just crazy.
Yeah, it really blew up. And it's crazy because a lot of people nowadays still think that eating plant-based is hard. And it's like, dude, you can go to a Taco Bell and order all this food. You can go to a Burger King and walk in there and get an Impossible Whopper. Like, I never thought I would see that. And I've only been vegan for 8 years now. And like, it's still come that far where it's like mainstream, you know? But people still think it's hard to eat plant-based, which is nuts.
It is nuts, and I can't, like, I don't make fun of anybody that says that, but I do always think it's funny, especially when like brand new vegans are like, oh man, you know, this was really hard, and I fell on like an old lady, like, well, back in my day.
Yeah. Back in my day, I ate cans of beans for dinner.
Exactly. Yep. 100%. I remember like drinking soy milk as the protein source for my meal because that's what I could find.
And you know what? Now that you mentioned that, wasn't soy way more? Like, I know soy has this whole stigma about it still, but wasn't it way more stigmatized back then? Like the myths were like even more rampant.
I don't think so. Only because nobody was eating it, so nobody cared back then. You know, the milk section of the grocery store was milk. That's it. It was cow's milk. And then like one container of soy milk and one container of rice milk, and that was it. So people didn't really give much thought to soy at all that I recall back then. Maybe it was different for you because you're a guy.
I was already into health before I went vegan, and I had already seen kind of how there was a lot of stigma around soy in general. In the fitness world, people were challenging that idea. Like, you would go to the end of a race that I ran, for example. I'm just thinking of a memory, and at the end, like, my friends having a conversation with me, and they're kind of like pushing like an anti-soy, almost an anti-soy campaign, like, oh, phytoestrogens, this and that, blah blah blah. So there was a big smear campaign for a while, but over time, the science has consistently shown that there's nothing there really. So.
Right.
Also, back then, veganism went in a really weird direction where nobody was vegan, but the very, very few people who were vegan went like straight to raw foodism. That was, I never did that, but I remember like that. If you took all of the vegans in the country, probably like 60 or 70% of them were raw foodists.
Was it that big?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was, it was wild. No, that's not the case
gosh.
anymore because those people like realized that doesn't make sense and they gave up. But
Yep. They all
for a
went
while,
carnivore.
yes, you're 100% right. That's exactly what happened. But yeah, so a lot of those folks, the raw food folks, they would say crazy stuff like soy is toxic for you, or wheat is toxic for you, cooked broccoli is toxic for you, like just crazy stuff. There was a lot of weirdness in the vegan community back then. There still is, but it seemed more prevalent then.
Yeah, I feel like the anyone who starts getting into like nutritional sciences and stuff, I mean, they should be citing like studies, I feel like, because a lot of there's just so much misinformation out there that's just perpetuated, like crazy things, and even like things that are like, kind of in between where they sound like they make sense a little bit until you look into it. Things like anti-nutrients and like leptins and stuff in food, and it's just like when you look into it, it's like most of that is not an issue at all because you cook it out. But then there's other crazy things where it's just like, oh, like you got to eat all meat or else you'll be unhealthy, and you should have super high cholesterol levels, and it's like, dude, what are you talking about? It's dangerous.
Yeah, but you hear it, right? Like I hear it when I go out, and for I can say back then, because so many fewer people, I guess, were on the internet, people were still spouting misinformation like crazy, but it was a much smaller pool of people doing it. Now everybody's on the internet and your reach is much, much further than it used to be. So I feel like even though there's lots of good information on the internet too, the bad stuff can just spread like rapid fire. And it's
right. Everyone
scary.
wants to hear bad news or good news about their bad habits. So they hear something like, oh, eating cheese is actually great for you. And then it's like the article headline, and then it's like maybe it references a study and it's completely taken out of context or something. It's like shit like that.
Yes. Yeah. There were nobody was looking at studies 20 years ago in the fitness community. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that now people are. Yeah, bodybuilding.com, T-Nation. Yeah, that was it.
Oh, yeah. I remember all that. So I started lifting like when I was 18. So that was like, geez, like 14 years ago. I'm getting up there now. But looking back now, it's just like crazy. Bodybuilding.com was like the biggest thing back then. And then, like you said, T-Nation, I kind of missed that. But I remember all this bro information was like the only stuff you can get on bodybuilding.com. It was like, oh, do these bro splits. And like you look back now, everyone's saying that you should never do that stuff. And if you do it, like you're stupid. It's like, dude, that's all the info we had.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody else about this today, actually, how that's exactly what we used to do. But it was because all of the stuff on bodybuilding.com was based on bodybuilders that use performance enhancing drugs and other things like that. But we were all copying them, even though it didn't make sense for people who weren't taking drugs. It would work for them because almost anything will work when you're also taking the drugs.
Yep.
But, at the time, that's just all we knew how to do. So
you still deal with a lot of that this day and age. And it's like you don't want to discourage someone who's fanning out on a 212-pound bodybuilder who's all jacked up on stage. They're motivated. Like, you don't want to rain on their parade and ruin their dream. But on the other side of the token, when this person is spouting out information that is not going to be applicable to the average person who's not on PEDs, for example, it can be a little bit of a slippery slope. You don't discourage, but also, be careful with the information that's spread out there too. Yeah,
like you want to keep your hopes high, but so it does suck to kind of bring somebody down and be like, well, you're never going to accomplish that. Like, I totally get that. But also it's like, yeah, you want to walk that thin line where it's like, well, you're probably not going to ever be, like, as a guy, like 240 pounds at 12% body fat, ever, no matter what your height is. So that is tricky. I want to take a step back here and talk about why you guys both went vegan in the first place, but I feel like we kind of glossed over that. What were you guys' individual reasons for going vegan? Because you guys went vegan separately.
Yeah, and we had very different reasons too. You can go first.
Yes, we did. I'm trying to think of the best way to tell this.
Like you haven't told it 400 times before.
Okay, I want to tell it a little bit differently. But long story short, I always wanted to help people. I was a person in the gym that always wanted to offer a spot or offer a word of advice, et cetera, et cetera. And that translated over into life as well. After I did a bodybuilding competition, I realized I had control of my body. And I was dating someone at the time. Her mom had a heart attack. The doctors were like, just don't stress and just eat a little less sugar. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this can't be the answer. Logically, I knew that was stupid. But I didn't know what I was talking about. And regardless, I also rapidly found out that there's nothing that I could say to someone to change them. So the best thing I could do was arm myself with information and lead by example. And all roads pointed towards eating meat as a condiment or avoiding it altogether. I had no ties to the ethical side of veganism whatsoever. So it was health-based to go plant-based, and I made that switch. And then I already had the bias, and I sought out social support. And through potlucks and community, I realized what was on my plate was an animal, a living, breathing animal with feelings that had to die for me. And I was like, well, that makes perfect sense. Then I also realized, well, you also have to destroy the environment to produce this animal as food and treat it as something that didn't have feelings to die for you. And I was like, wow, okay, so now this is something that makes sense for the environment as well. And it was like a no-brainer. And that's when it became my life.
Yeah.
So his was initially all for health reasons.
Initially.
Sure. Yeah.
Mine was the opposite of that.
Yeah, it was.
So I actually went vegetarian when I was like 8 years old, because I saw a lobster that I was basically hanging out with all day get cooked, and it like messed me up as a kid. And I was just like, what do you mean? Like, chicken nuggets are chickens? And I remember asking my mom, like, well, do we have to eat this? And she was like, well, some people don't. And I was like, cool, I'm gonna do that then. So even though they hated every second of it, I just stopped eating. Like, they would still serve me meat every night, and I would just like eat around it from then on out. And they thought it was going to be a phase. They were very, very wrong. But I was actually very, very overweight. Like, the older I got, I did consume a lot of dairy, a lot of eggs, like a lot of dairy. And by the time I was 16, I was 210 pounds. But everybody in my family was overweight, so I just was like, okay, this is just genetics. But I was writing a paper in junior English, about vegetarianism, and I stumbled across this website that explained the connection between the dairy and egg industry and the meat industry. Because I would have always said the same thing. Well, chickens lay eggs anyway. You got to milk cows. What else are you going to do with it? Like, it doesn't hurt them. Okay, so I learned that was wrong. And I just went vegan overnight, basically, strictly for that. I did not want to support this industry. So I didn't know anything about nutrition at all. I just stopped eating dairy and eggs and then started learning more and more. And the next time I went to the doctor, like a couple months later, just for a regular checkup, they were like, you're down 30 pounds, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And I was like, oh, what? I was eating shit. I was eating like plain bagels with nothing on them and French fries and Coca-Cola, but I was still losing weight at the time. So that's when I actually started to deliberately try to learn something about nutrition and start like exercising, basically. And that just steamrolled.
Right. So that kind of explains how you also got into fitness too. My story is also similar to Giacomo's, actually, where I got into it for trying to prevent or slow the rate of, like plaque buildup, keep my heart healthy and stuff. So I went mainly plant-based originally for that purpose. And then I found also how bad dairy and eggs are for, raising cholesterol levels and all that stuff. And so I dropped that. And then obviously, like, once you drop it, like, I feel like I hear a lot of other guys have similar stories where, like, they then kind of, like, realize that they really, like, they understand how terrible these animals are treated, and then they go vegan mainly for the animals and all that. So I was the same as Giacomo there. I've heard of a lot of women, especially, being a little more, like, empathetic to the morals at first. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think that that's probably accurate. I think that whether it's like in us genetically or it's just pushed on us by society, who can say? But I think women are just taught to be more empathetic and more in touch with their emotions and more caring and nurturing. Like, again, I don't know if it's nature or nurture, but I think that makes us recognize different things. And I've also like wondered if it's because like as a sex, like women are not the ones in charge. Like we often are submissive to like men in lots of different ways. So as not being like the leaders, if we also recognize that things like children and animals like also are usually in a more vulnerable position, that we just connect faster with them. I don't know. It's just a thought.
I read a book all about that maybe a year ago. I forget the title of it off the top of my head, but it's all about like basically like sexism and like how it ties in with the animal agriculture industry. It's pretty interesting.
The sexual politics of meat.
That's it.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Long time ago I read that one, but I do remember it like kind of sticking and just noticing that. But I also wonder, like you said, both of you guys went vegan and then we're like, oh yeah, the animals too. I wonder if like something in your brain just doesn't let you even go there while you're still like participating in like eating meat. I don't know.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was gonna mention, because I feel like when I try to appeal to other guys who don't eat plant-based yet or anything, or they're not vegan or whatever, I try to bring up the health aspects, and specifically I really like lately to target the ED aspect of, like, you know, if you're on the route to heart disease or anything, like one of the first things that happen, you know, is that, and then it gets a lot of guys. So
it's funny, that's Corinne's approach at events, and he pulls no punches.
Ryan Nelson too. Yeah,
Ryan Nelson does the same thing.
Yeah,
they'll go right for it. They'll be like, are we allowed to curse on your podcast? They'll be like,
oh yeah.
Does your dick work? Because it might not if you keep eating meat. And they'll just come right up to like a person twice your size and they'll look at them and be like, well, you may be bigger than me, but you're gonna know how to use that thing in a little bit. Like, you better stop eating meat.
They'll do that at like the Arnold, the Olympia, when we have a booth there. Thank God they're there, because I could not just talk to strangers like that, but they don't mind.
It's whatever.
Yeah. No, I love that, because sometimes you just really need to just go all in from the bat, you know, to get somebody interested. And that gets a lot of guys interested. Even my roommate, like I told him about that, and he was like, damn, like, maybe I should go plant-based. I'm like, yeah, that'll get you, right?
Yeah. It's a good avenue in.
Yeah, totally, yeah. So, all right, so we to kind of go back to the whole life story here. So you guys formed Vegan Proteins and everything while you're in Portland, and you guys ran that for a while, for years. And then I remember, Danny, you mentioned to me in person that you said kind of because of Amazon, right? Amazon came in and kind of just started being like the biggest distributor of like everything, and it was like, well, you know, you guys kind of segued into online coaching and stuff, right?
Yeah, so I had actually started coaching. I actually started coaching because of Giacomo. Giacomo was competing, and Robert was competing, and I was watching some of the stuff they were doing. Like we just talked about, we all did stupid things in fitness 15 years ago. But I remember watching them and just being like, there has got to be a better way than what these two jackals are doing, right? So I became just like obsessed with like researching the most evidence-based, I guess. They didn't even call it that back then, but the best practices to get in bodybuilding shape, peak week, compete, all of that. So I learned all of that back then before I had ever stepped on stage myself, actually. And some of our other vegan friends would be like, Danny, can you help me? I want to compete. And I was like, sure, I don't know what I'm doing, but we can learn together. And this was probably back in like 2012, I would say.
Well, that was right around the time
we started Plant Built.
Correct.
Yeah.
And several of those athletes were coached by Danny on that very first team that we had 10 years ago.
So we had the supplement shop going at the same time that I was coaching people, and I was getting better, and I was earning a reputation for being pretty good at it. And then finally I was like, okay, if I can get all these people to get on stage, I should probably just like do it. Like maybe I can do it too. I didn't think I could because I had lost so much weight. I just didn't think I'd ever be able to like look the part, because that much weight loss does a lot to your body that other people don't have to deal with. But I did it, and I was pretty good at it. So, and competed for several years, and may still compete in the future, just not right this minute. But yeah, in like 2015, we basically like looked at the books, looked at what was happening in the world, and it was such a mixed bag of emotion to be like, I think we should shut the shop down. Because we had it for so long and we loved doing it. We hand wrote notes to people that ordered from us and all that stuff. But it wasn't making like literally any money anymore because we had to make our margins so small to compete with Amazon. And also, like I said, people could just walk into a store now and buy a lot of these things. So that also made us happy to know that it was so much easier for people to get these things. The world like didn't need our little vegan supplement shop. So we just both pivoted hard into coaching. And that was, I guess, like 8-ish years ago.
Yeah.
So
pretty much.
Yeah. And now we have four coaches, so.
Oh, yeah. I imagine that being pretty bittersweet, like you kind of mentioned. It's like you see veganism growing so much during these years, and it's cool in a way, but all of a sudden it's just like, damn, well, I guess it's time to shut up shop and then switch to something else. But you're still helping out the vegan community so much with what you guys do.
But we also made sure to frame it that way when we made a public announcement that the world didn't need online vegan exactly. So it was actually a celebration of sorts, and that's how we pivoted immediately and made it make sense to everyone, as opposed to being something that was emotionally challenging and hard to let go of.
Yeah, but that is why our coaching company is called Vegan Proteins. It's because we used to be a store that sold proteins, but we're not changing it now. So
when you guys explained that, like I was actually I forgot for a second, but I remembered your guys' shop back in the day, and I didn't put it together though. I didn't put together that like I remember hearing about the coaching. I was like, why is this called Vegan Proteins? Like I was missing something. And then when you guys said that, reminded me about the shop. Basically, I was like, oh my god, wait, now I get this. Like I get the whole timeline now.
Yeah, see, you had to see the whole thing to understand what the heck we were doing. We're trying to like low key call it Vegan Proteins Online Coaching now, but we're still going to call it Vegan Proteins.
Yeah. It's whatever. So also you kind of mentioned you guys started Plant Built in, you said 2012. For anyone who doesn't know, what is Plant Built exactly?
Plant Built is the largest team of vegan strength athletes in the world. To date, I only know of one other team that was somewhere in Europe, and there was like 4 or 5 of them, but it kind of was just dead in the water. But for us, we started off as a team of 10 years ago in bodybuilding only, and then next year we added on powerlifting, and over the course of time we've competed in 6 different sports. We just competed, and because you were there, like a month or two ago in Miss America, and we competed in 5 sports at once. We took home 41 medals, 31 of them being first place medals, 1 titles. It's actually pretty surreal that 10 years later we're still going strong as a team of athletes, and we're like 30 plus athletes out there this year.
Yeah, and it's really cool. I mean, I know you saw, but for people listening, like we don't just go out and compete against each other, which a lot of people think we just compete in vegan competitions, which there are no vegan competitions except for one that I can think of. We compete against everybody, like who's not vegan. And the point is we're trying to show that like we can hang basically as vegan athletes, and a lot of times we win. So that's what we're trying to show, that you don't need to eat meat or consume whey protein or egg whites, and you can still be a strong, competitive strength athlete specifically.
And yes, we're loud and proud about calling ourselves a vegan team, but our results speak for themselves. For us, it's about competing and winning, and that is our in, because there's really no disputing. When you beat someone else, fair is fair. You've taken a podium placing, and now you have a chance to be heard and listened to, or at the very least be seen as an athlete who can be competitive. And that's basically our talking point. That's how we get a chance to have conversations.
Yeah, I love that so much. It's also just great activism in itself, because like you guys said, like you just demonstrate firsthand. It's like, well, we beat you at this, and everyone loves to talk shit online about how vegans can't be strong, and then all of a sudden you see like Ryan Stills deadlifting like 760 pounds or something insane, and it's like, come on, dude, how do you
at 47 years old, like he's almost 50. He's a natural athlete.
Yup.
And the whole team is natural. That's really important to us because we don't want people to say, oh, well, you must all be on drugs. So there are certainly vegans that exist that do take performance enhancing drugs, but we make an effort to make sure that our team is not that. So that can't be used as like an argument against us.
Correct. Right. Yeah. So they're drug tested for anyone who doesn't know. But yeah, so that makes a lot of sense too. It rules out that argument right off the bat because people also love to throw that out online. They love to say that. It's like, well, this guy's only jacked because he's on steroids, and that's the only reason why you can be jacked as a vegan. It's like, dude, nah, man. It's not true.
And every time I see that, I'm just like, you just basically told everybody you don't know anything about fitness if you think that is what performance enhancing drugs look like. Like, that's what I always hear is I'm mad because I don't look good enough, so everybody else is on steroids.
Oh, people love throwing that out there too. It's like, well, I don't look as good as you. Oh, you're on steroids.
Yeah, definitely.
So just I want to kind of highlight what were some of these feats of strength that were demonstrated at like the Mr. America, for example. Like, can you guys think of anything else off the top of your head just to throw some numbers out there or some records that were maybe?
Oh, I wish I could remember some specific numbers off the top of my head, but I know that Angeline came in from France and she competed in strongman, and I might have these numbers slightly wrong, but she Ukrainian deadlifted, which is basically like a deficit deadlift that looks like a keg that you're pulling off the floor. That thing was almost 300 pounds, and she did it 22 times in a row in 60 seconds.
That's insane. And for context, how much does she weigh? Like, what's her?
Probably like 160, 170 maybe.
All right, that
natural
is
female.
mind-blowing.
She's like 24 years old or something like that, and she won. She won the entire event, the entire strong woman event. She came in first. Sophie, who's also on our team, came in second she came in first in the lightweight category in strong woman, so that put her second in the whole competition. Ryan Stills, like you just mentioned, won the entire competition for powerlifting. We had a girl named Katie who squatted 400 pounds in powerlifting. Just bananas.
Yeah, she's a beast.
For kettlebell, but I clearly saw
208
for Hege.
Hege did. So kettlebell sport is totally weird. I don't think you got to see that one.
No, I
Kettlebell
didn't
sport
see
is
it.
weird because it's 10 minutes straight with the kettlebell. You're doing like in this case she was doing a snatch for 10 minutes straight with like a 30-pound kettlebell. If you put it down, you're done. You can switch hands once, but you cannot put it down at all. 10 freaking minutes. So it's like strength meets cardio. She got 208 reps in 10 minutes with a 30-pound kettlebell.
I can't even fathom that for 10 minutes. Like, I can't think of running for 10 minutes is hard for a lot of people. Like, that's insane.
Well, then our other kettlebell sport gal, her name's Sarah Lee, she did what they call a marathon, which is 30 minutes. It's 30 minutes of she did the clean and jerk. For 30 straight minutes. Yeah, it was. And we sat there and watched the entire thing, cheered her on.
Years prior, we saw her officiate in a world record?
A world record.
A world record on one of our previous competitions as well.
She was the first woman ever to complete the marathon with 2 kettlebells. So 30 minutes with 2 kettlebells, clean and jerk.
I can't, it blows my mind. It's just insane. It just does not make sense.
On our CrossFit team, our guys won first place in the men's and our girls won first place in the women's. And I didn't get to see all of that, so I don't know exactly what they did. Plus, I don't totally understand CrossFit scoring, if I'm being honest, but we won all of it. We won the entire CrossFit game. So that was cool. Bodybuilding, this was not our year in bodybuilding, I would say. Our bodybuilders all looked fantastic. Everybody held their own up there, but I think the only person who won, actually she didn't win. Nadej had her pro debut. She won last year, and this was her pro debut, and she got 3rd, which is pretty impressive in your first ever huge, pro show. But it was also the biggest pro team we've ever had. We had, I think, 6 pro bodybuilders on stage, and they all placed in the top 5, but we didn't have anybody that won. But still, I still think it was our most competitive bodybuilding team we've ever had.
Oh, yeah. hands down.
I mean, yeah, that's amazing. The whole event was like dominated by plant built lifters, which I loved. You just saw all these hoodies and everything. It was so cool to see that many plant based athletes there represented. So I love what you guys are doing with that. Like I think it's the coolest fucking thing ever.
Thanks.
I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you got to come out and see it too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, thank you guys again for that. That was such a cool experience. It, just I can't compete at that level. Like I'm just not built like that. So like for context, these guys and girls are so incredibly, like they're just incredible examples. So they're amazing. And then am I missing out on anything else that you guys are also doing besides plant built and vegan proteins coaching right now?
Yes, actually.
So we do Vegan Strong as well. So Vegan Strong and Plant Built, we kind of merged those together. Plant Built was ours, Vegan Strong was something else, and then we kind of merged them to make it all happen. But the other thing Vegan Strong does is we tour the country going to large fitness expos like the Arnold, like the Olympia, and we just have a table there. We're not competing or anything. We have a table and we talk to people about our Lord and Savior veganism, basically.
Yeah, we really do. We drive that point home.
But it's some of the biggest meat eaters, egg eaters, whey eaters in the world at these events, and they come up to the table and ask us questions, and that's just what we're there to do. We're just there to educate people and answer the questions if they have them.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Do you guys are you guys Bible thumpers with the Earthling Ends book, vegan propaganda book? Just like, hey,
love that book.
We read it. We like it a lot. I like Earthling Ed. He's good. Like he's smooth with his talking for sure.
He's great.
But we don't come from a judgy place with people at these shows ever, because that's not going to help anybody. That's not going to help anybody make a change. It's just going to solidify that vegans are a bunch of assholes and they're not going to want to have anything to do with us. But, if they come up with, sometimes they'll come over to heckle us a little bit, and most of the time we can kind of change their mind a little bit. When they realize we're like not going to bite or fight with them, we can get them to, here's some coupons. Here, go try this. You don't know how you can get protein? Here's some free coupons for like field roast. You can go give it a try. I bet you're really going to like it. So that's the other thing. We have like coupon sample stuff so that they can actually go to the store and try stuff on their own.
Yeah, that's awesome too. I really like that approach to activism where it's kind of like, you're not, like you said, vegans earned like kind of this bad rap before, and I don't know if it was actually a legit thing or just blown out of proportion or what, but I love the approach of being like, look at what we have accomplished, like look at all this awesome stuff and here are the facts kind of thing, and then that's really what converts people. And also it's just like, here, give it a shot, like here's a discount. That's awesome. And you can reach so many people that way too.
We talk to a lot of people. That's for sure.
Lots and lots of conversations.
We're planting seeds. That's the idea. We're just trying to plant some seeds out there. And, what if we influence one person who has a ton of influence in their own gym or their own like fitness market that can then, influence more people? That's what it's all about. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. One thing leads right to another. So speaking of which, what does the future look like for you guys? You guys have big plans with all this stuff, or
we actually with vegan proteins with our coaching company, we do have some pretty big plans for next year. We actually are meeting this next weekend to like lay out all of the content and stuff for next year. So very excited about that. But with Plant Built and Vegan Strong, every year at the end of the year, we have to wait to hear if we have funding. Which is completely out of our hands. So if we do, we'll be back and it'll be bigger and better than ever. And if we don't, we will be on the internet a lot more than we are right now.
That's awesome, guys. All right, so let's, I don't want to take too much more of your time. I know it's about 7 right now, but I do want to close out with a couple things. So one big thing that I'd love to kind of touch on is for people who have been, you guys have been vegan and into fitness for so long now, and you guys have seen everything like change, and all these people come and go with veganism, and all these new vegans coming. What's some big advice you would offer maybe to people who are into some sort of sport maybe, or physique sports, strength sports, whatever, and they want to go vegan? What kind of advice would you guys offer there in terms of maybe nutrition, maybe like finding a support group, like things like that, resources maybe? What do you think? If you had to give yourself advice maybe from the past.
Well, especially in this day and age where there's just far too much information out there and you just don't know what's up or down, definitely seek out some in-person support if you can. See if you can find community. Go to a local veg fest if you have access to that. You can check out our content too. We run a podcast as well. We have a YouTube channel, so you can reach out to us directly, for example, and you can check out Vegan Strong. You can check out Plant Built. Yeah, there's all kinds of support out there as well, and you can reach out to the athletes on the Plant Built team also, so you can see what each athlete has their own bio with some information about how they eat, how they train, et cetera, and how to contact them as well as us.
I would say like a lot of times when people want to go vegan, they think they have to just like reinvent the wheel. They need to flip their life completely upside down to do it, and I don't think it needs to be that way. If somebody's already into sports and they want to go more plant-based, let's say maybe eventually vegan, they can start by just swapping out their protein powder or swapping out their dairy milk for non-dairy milk. And maybe they do that for a while. And then maybe they swap out their fish for tofu. And then maybe they try some of the like mock meats that are out there. Like, it doesn't have to be overnight, and it doesn't have to be perfect to be really, really effective.
We're loud and proud about using the vegan word, and we definitely encourage people to identify with it and to not fear it. But there are a lot of people who are like quiet vegan or not 100% plant-based that come to us all the time, because when you come at someone from a non-judgmental standpoint, you give them the chance to feel comfortable with what they're doing. But regardless of our approach, there are plenty of others out there just like you who don't necessarily need to say I'm vegan or worry about being judged by others, or like everyone's personality is different. Some people will want to be out there, other people just want to be quiet and do their own thing. Regardless, like, you can make dietary changes, you can make lifestyle changes, and you can do it on your own time.
I think that's great advice. Yeah. If you guys had to give a specific recommendation, this is kind of just like just me wanting to hear more about your guys' personal preferences here, for protein powders, for example, what would you say? So like Danny kind of mentioned, like swapping for their protein powder for something else, and for people who have ran a vegan protein business, what are some of your guys' favorites?
Well, ironically, I don't like protein powder very much. I think it's because I overdid it so much when I was younger, but I will speak very highly of the new Phyta protein that's out right now. It's Phyta. It's James Wilkes from the Game Changers made it. He sent me a bag to try, and I just said, hey, straight up, I don't like protein powder very much, so don't expect too much from me. But I was very impressed. It's made from upcycled barley, and it just
and fava bean protein too, I think.
I think so. I'd have to pull it out. It might have fava bean protein in it.
I tried some myself, and it was it mixed so well, it was insane.
It like disappears. It just absolutely vanishes when you put it in water.
I'm a little more old school with my protein powder. I like it to puff up a little bit.
Gamma style.
And with the Phyta stuff, it does taste really good, but like I go to make protes out of that, and it's just like it just doesn't puff up the protes. Like, for me,
I was just gonna say that.
You know what I mean? So I like that old school kind of stuff. I do like Plant Fusion a lot. I also like the fact that they believe in us and they sponsor us, and to me, that means just as much as if like this thing tastes a certain way. Like, that's a company that I like their stuff, and I like the fact that they support the vegan movement, and they have since day one. They're like one of the OGs. That being said, I also like making my own blends. So I can go to truenutrition.com and I can make a 70p30 rice blend and flavor up the way I want it. But yeah, again, the Phyta stuff tastes really, really good, and it's clean. It's a little cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
If you can't afford to pay for the way they manufacture it, which is also environmentally friendly, so it seems. But then also it doesn't puff up.
Yeah. Oh, it's so funny. I was going to say the same thing. I tried to make protein pancakes out of Phyta. It was a big fail.
Yeah, Natalie, we were talking to Natalie Matthews this past weekend. We went out with her and George, and she was saying the same thing. She loved it to drink it, but to like make recipes, it was not the right one.
Yup. Definitely agree there. All right, so where can people find you guys and all your stuff on social media?
So you can find me at Vegan Proteins on Instagram.
You can find me at Muscles by Brussels on Instagram.
Yeah, Giacomo's at Muscles by Brussels. We have a YouTube channel called Vegan Proteins, and our podcast is called Muscles by Brussels Radio. And then all of our information is at veganproteins.com.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for the chat. This is awesome. Great having you guys on. It was such a huge pleasure. Any last words you guys want to say at all before we sign out here?
No, man. Thank you for having us. This was really fun.
Yeah, this was a blast.
Definitely, guys. Thank you guys so much. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ethics Approach podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, it would mean a ton if you gave the podcast a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, Stitcher, Player FM, Pinecast, or any other service you're listening to it on, and if you subscribe to the Ethics Fitness YouTube channel, Instagram page, Twitter, and Facebook page. Feel free to check out the articles, training and nutrition programs, coaching services, and merch on ethicsfitness.com. And if you like what I'm making, dropping a like, commenting, and sharing would mean a ton to me. Thank you so much again, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace out.